Hello everyone, my name is Kitetsu and welcome back to my channel. I have been so busy recently that I thought I need to get a video up. I always want to get a video up every Friday, and I thought, hey, it's been so long since I did a tactical analysis sort of video, and I thought, why not pick Drycha Hamadreth, who is one of my all-time favourite characters. So I don't think this needs to be a particularly long video. I know some of my tactical videos in the past have been way too long, so I'll try my best to keep it a little bit more condensed. But first thing that leaps out with Drycha that I really like is the fact that she has a 9-inch movement range, and compared to, say, a Tree Lord, that is practically sprinting. It's, I think, almost double their movement, so that's really cool. She has 10 wounds, which is not bad. I would like to see more, but considering the points she is and considering what she's good at and what she's for, I think that's about right. And then she also has a 3+ save, which I'm a huge fan of. I really like 3+ saves, and I think it's surprising to see that here, and it gives her that extra bit of durability that will really help her survive for the kind of roles that you want to use her for. So onto her warscroll, she has the colony of Flitter Furies and the swarm of Squirmlings, which are her two kind of signature missile attacks. They're both very different, and there's probably quite a bit of debate amongst people as to which one of these two is better. We will, of course, go into more detail throughout the course of this video. Then she has her Slashing Talons and Thorned Slendervines. The Slendervines are nothing special. It's nice that they're there, and again, for the roles that I think you will want to use her for, they're a nice extra. But the Slashing Talons are basically where the main amount of damage in close combat is going to come from, because they're A at -1 rend, which is always nice, and they do 2 damage. They also wound on a 3 instead of the 4 that these Slendervines do. So she's not bad in combat. You know, there are things that are far more potent, but again, what is cool here is that if you look at the damage table, her Slashing Talons do, when she's obviously at full health, they do 6 attacks. That's pretty decent, and basically where I'm going with this whole video is the fact that if you are playing against horde armies where there's large numbers of models on the board and they're all pretty weak individually, then I think Drycha is just an absolutely essential unit to take. So when you look at the descriptions and abilities that she can do, you find out that she kind of flits between these two different forms. This is called her Mercurial Aspect. The first is Enraged and the second is Embittered. While she is Enraged, you double the number of attacks she makes with her Slashing Talons. So that's really cool. If she's at full health, she does 12 attacks in close combat, which is brilliant. If she is Embittered, you subtract 2 from the number of wounds that she's lost when referring to the damage table. So everything on the damage table kind of looks one better than where she actually is. So that's really cool as well. But let's have a quick look at these 2 main abilities, the colony and the swarm. If you read the description carefully, you have to choose one of these to take into battle with her, basically. And that's kind of frustrating from a modelling perspective. So with my personal own model, I've kind of decided to not stick any of the Flitter Furies or Squirmlings onto a model, and that way I can kind of pick which one I want to use without being kind of stuck with a model that I'm saying, hey, I'm going to use the Flitter Furies when I've kind of stuck Squirmlings all over it. I think that makes sense because she's covered in all these hives, and it kind of makes sense that these creatures could be just hiding inside them and they haven't come out yet. Whether she is Enraged or Embittered favours one or the other, and we'll look at that in a little bit more detail in a minute. She has this kind of extra bonus with the outcasts, and while it's not superb. It kind of is nice from a lore perspective, and by now you guys know that I'm all about the lore. I completely love it, so it's very cool to see some of that lore coming into the War Scrolls. On top of that, she is a wizard with her own signature spell, which is called Primal Terror, and it's not that great, to be honest. I think her abilities are far more potent, and because she can basically cast one spell a turn, you are better off probably giving her another spell to cast than her signature one. We'll look at that in a bit more detail in a minute. Right, Squirmlings. These are the greeny, bluey, turquoise, I guess, little worms that are shown on the left, and the Flitter Furies are kind of like a swarm of flies, I guess. As I said, embittered or enraged, favour one or the other. With the embittered state, you can re-roll ones for her swarm of Squirmlings, which is pretty cool. For the enraged state, she re-rolls ones for the Flitter Furies. Basically, the way these attacks work is, for the Flitter Furies, you will pick as many units as are in range, which is shown on the damage table. So at full health, she is looking at an 18-inch range, so any units within 18 inches, you will roll 10 dice for. Okay, so say there's 5 units in range, you will roll 5 lots of 10 dice, 1 lot for each unit, and for every 6 that you roll, that unit suffers a mortal wound. And it kind of both sounds really, really good on paper and also not that great, because obviously you're potentially rolling masses of dice, but then the chances of dealing the mortal wounds is not that high. The swarm of Squirmlings, on the other hand, you pick just one unit and you roll a dice for each model in the unit. And basically, if the dice score exceeds the number in the damage table, which starts off at only a 3+, they take a mortal wound. So you're targeting less units, but you are doing those mortal wounds much more easily, basically. I think, personally, that the enraged state leaves Drycha far better in combat, because if you look at the slashing talons, say you're at full health and you're going to do 6 attacks with the slashing talons. If you are embittered, then obviously you subtract 2 from the damage table, which makes no difference. If you've basically been knocked down to 5 attacks, then you will move 1 up and do 6 attacks. Whereas if you're enraged, you're going to be doing either 12 attacks or 10 attacks, which is significantly better. Even all the way down to 3 attacks. If you're embittered, you're going to move up to 4 attacks. Whereas if you are enraged, you're going to go to 6 attacks. So pretty much better all around in combat if you are enraged. However, embittered, I think, makes a very nice difference for your ranged attacks. And on the whole, I would say I much prefer the swarm of Squirmlings over the colony of Flitter Furies. But let's just run through a couple of quick scenarios to show you why I think that. If you are picking on a unit of Plague Monks, and there are 20 in that squad, if you are attacking just a single unit that's in range, you're going to roll 10 dice and you need to hit on a 6+, which, when you do the maths, you're basically only going to be killing between 1 and 2 models, which really isn't selling Drycha. The enraged state doesn't really help very much, because you're going to be looking at 1 extra reroll and you have a 1 in 6 chance of making it, so it's highly unlikely that it's going to help you there. If you look at the exact same scenario but with the Squirmlings, you're going to be rolling 20 dice, because it's 1 for each model. You're hitting on a 3+, and you're going to be killing 13 models on average, which is insanely good. If you are embittered on top of that, you get 3 extra rerolls, and you're going to cause probably 2 extra wounds, because a 3+ is basically like hitting 2/3 of your shots. So 15 out of 20 dead Plague Monks. That's really, really good. It's 3/4 of a unit just wiped like that in one turn. In one shooting attack, in fact. Then on top of that, she can basically charge in and attack and finish off the remaining 5. So, very cool. If you put the colony of Flitter Furies in a scenario where it's kind of more in that ability's favour, like say this one here where there are 5 units within 18 inches of her, then you're rolling a massive amount of dice because it's 10 per unit. And that means in this scenario here, you would be rolling 50 dice, which sounds really exciting. But because you're only hitting on a 6, you're only really doing about 8 wounds. And even if you're enraged, it doesn't really help because the chances of getting a 6 on 50 dice is the same as the chance of getting 1s. So although you'll cause 8 wounds, you're only going to get 8 rerolls, and the chance of getting a 6 on 8 dice is just over 1, so you're looking at 1 extra wound basically. So 9 wounds. So even in a scenario like this, where it's really in the favour of the colony of Flitter Furies, you're still only going to be doing about 9 wounds compared to potentially 15 from the swarm of Squirmlings. I guess one thing I would say here is that if you are targeting a multi-wound model, like a hero or leader, you are going to be much better off using the colony of Flitter Furies because obviously you're not just rolling 1 dice. The swarm of Squirmlings basically just favours the biggest possible unit that you can target. This is the slight issue with that ability as well, because if you are facing something like Warriors of Chaos and you only have a unit of 5 that you're targeting, then you're only going to be rolling 5 dice, which means you're going to do only about 2 mortal wounds, and in fact it's less for these guys than I think you would do 3-ish, between 2 and 3, but they have a 5+ save with their shield against mortal wounds, so as a kind of tar pit unit, if you are up against Drycha and you were using Slaves to Darkness, then having small bands of Warriors of Chaos are really going to tire up. And yeah, basically you're only going to kill 1 model in that unit compared to the 15 Plague Monks. So basically the conclusion or take home message here is, with Drycha, always target the weakest, largest numbers of units you can find, and it's the difference between wiping out 1 model or 3/4 of a unit, basically. Then that moves on to her being in close combat. I've kind of put the Plague Monks here on the right and the Liberators on the left to show kind of 2 completely different sides of the spectrum. If you attack a unit of Plague Monks with just the slashing talons, she's probably going to be killing 4 models at full health. If you enrage her, she's probably going to be killing 8. Whereas if you are fighting a unit of Liberators, she will probably kill 2 or 5. And I know that math doesn't seem to add up. It's because the chance of the normal models being killed, I think, ends up being about 2.3 or something. Maybe 2.4, so I rounded that down to 2. Whereas by the time you've doubled your attacks, you're looking at 4.8. So 5 dead models. And yeah, I think this just illustrates again that obviously weak, massive hordes, she's really good at clearing the table of. Whereas if you are fighting something like Liberators and they've also got their re-rolling failed saves of 1s, you're going to have a much harder time getting through them. Of course, on top of that, the Slender Vines are going to be far more effective against Plague Monks because it doesn't have any rend and they don't have any save, whereas they're going to be significantly less effective against your Liberators. The last thing I guess you really need to know is that the Spite Revenants have 2 abilities that synergize really well with Drycha. So basically Drycha first of all does this Song of Spite, and that means you can re-roll wound rolls of 1 for Spite Revenants whilst their unit is within 10 inches of Drycha. So that's pretty cool, you know, it means a unit of 10 of them is already doing 30 attacks, and I think if you were going to attack a unit of Plague Monks with 10 Spite Revenants, you're going to be doing, I think it was about 8 wounds, and With the rerolls, it's not a massive difference, but it does bring it up to about 9. So you're still potentially going to wipe out around half a unit of Plague Monks using that kind of synergy. But the other kind of synergy that you can use is the fact that the Spite Revenants have Unbridled Malice, which means that enemy units have to subtract from their bravery when they're within 3 inches of the Spite Revenants. And Drycha, with her unique spell, she basically penalises units for having low bravery. And if we run through the spell itself, it has a casting value of 6, and you roll a dice for the unit. So say we're looking at a unit of Plague Monks, which I think are bravery 5. You'd roll a dice, and say you roll fairly average and get a 4. You add 2 to that result, so it becomes 6. And then for every point which that total exceeds the highest bravery in the unit, they would suffer a mortal wound. So if you rolled a 4, you add 2, you got 6, their bravery's 5, you would do 1 mortal wound on them. Obviously, if the Spite Revenants are nearby, they would be subtracting 1, so you would be doing an extra mortal wound, which is kind of cool. But that being said, that spell is only going to do 2 mortal wounds on a unit of Plague Monks, which are already really low bravery, so you have to ask yourself whether that is really worth doing in the first place. As a Sylvaneth wizard, however, you can give her the regrowth spell, and that allows her to basically heal d6 wounds per hero phase. So personally, I would much rather be giving her that than using something like Primal Terror, because her Swarm of Squirmlings is just going to cut through fairly weak units, and you want to keep her topped off because the drop off of her damage table is, it's not too bad, but you know, the difference between the 4 and the 5+ and the 3+ is pretty big. So yeah, to be honest, I think that's all we really need to say about her. She's an amazing unit. She's very powerful. I'd say she's cost exactly right. And if you are careful with her and use her as basically an ambush unit, she can just spring up out of the trees and pretty much wipe out an entire unit in a turn. And then with her high movement and range abilities of her missile attacks, she can just rinse and repeat. So yep, that is Drycha Hamadreth, one of my favourite models and favourite characters in the game. And I will hopefully be doing some more of these kind of tactical analyses. Analyses? Is that a word? I guess so. I'll be doing more of these soon. And yep, don't forget to like and subscribe. Just to give you guys a quick update on what's going on with me, I'm so damn busy at the moment with this kind of new job that I'm applying for. I've got these crazy interviews going on and tests. I think I'm going to have to do 2 extra tests this week, and then I've got to go up to London to do 2 more tests, and it's taking up an extraordinary amount of my time, so you're going to have to bear with me for videos. I still want to stick to my 1 per week as best as possible, but I've got an enormous list of topics I want to talk about. With all of the new stuff that's happening at the moment, I can't actually quite keep up with it, especially with how busy I am. So don't worry, these things are all coming. There will be far more content soon. And in the meantime, guys, stay awesome. Thank you so much for all your support. I can't believe I'm on like over 1,200 subscribers now. It doesn't feel real. And that's all down to you guys. So just keep doing what you're doing. Smash the like button and don't forget to subscribe. And I'll see you guys soon.